Hello, everyone coming in on Zoom. I am Henry Crawford, and welcome to the May 2022 edition of Poets versus the Pandemic. As we continue our third year of providing a reading space for poets whose books have come out during the pandemic with the limited reading abilities. Tonight, we are featuring Janice Booth, Natalie Canavore, Sandy Cohen, Carol Falk, and Meg Robinson, who together are the poets of the new poetry book, The Song in the Room, compiled by Grace Cavalieri. And with me tonight as co-host is WordWorks founder, Karen Alanier. Now, I want to thank everyone for coming in tonight, and I want to thank everybody for their support of this poetry program over the last couple of years. Let me also thank the WordWorks for their help in making all of this possible. From time to time during the program, I will put in a link into the chat that will take you to the places where you can purchase The Song in the Room. We also have a donation button on that page, so don't feel shy about donating to our program. We at WordWorks and Cafe Muse will thank you wholeheartedly. I'm also going to put into the chat from time to time a link where you can follow all of our WordWorks readings, sign up on the registration form, and you'll get Zoom links for all of our poetry readings. Now, if you would like to ask a question of our poets while they're performing, feel free to drop a question into the chat, and we'll try to get to them. I'll try to get to as many of them, at least, as we have time. A couple more things. Please join us on Monday, June 6, 2022, when Cafe Muse Online will present poet Kimiko Han and Sharon Suzuki Martinez. And don't miss the final program of the Miller Cabin series on June 9, 2022, featuring a tribute to Jacqueline Potter. And finally, we'll be back here again with PVP on June 29th, 2022, featuring Sue Ellen Thompson, reading from her new book, Sea Nettles, along with guest poets Fran Abrams and Aaron Casedo Kimura. So let's get started. Tonight, we have a special program, a group of women artists who came together in the days just before the pandemic to learn how artists from various disciplines could share with one another the insights and the knowledge gained in their own art forms. And under the tutelage of Grace Cavalieri, they came to poetry. Using their rich background of experience and artistic talent, these 6 women were soon taking up and mastering the poetic forms of pantoum, sonnet, villanelle, sestina, haiku, and others. The poems they wrote at their weekly meetings present us with what Grace calls a recording of a certain time in history, a memory box, a family album, a reporting out into the world, a song in the room. And tonight, we'll have the song in our own PVP Zoom room. So I'm going to turn the mic over to our beloved Grace Cavalieri. She is the 10th Poet Laureate of the state of Maryland and the compiler of the poems in the Song in the Room. So Grace, let's hear from you and your group.
Thank you, Henry. This is so wonderful that you've given us this platform so that we can show the poems that were written over the last couple of years. And we want to thank Karen and Cafe Muse. This is the most beautiful platform to premiere the work that we could imagine. We're so grateful. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to one of our members who could not be here because of work obligations, Donna Ruderow. Now, she is a children's creator of books and a book publisher of children's literature. She's also a graphics artist, and she's a great contribution to our group. So we're going to have to reassemble so you can see Donna next time. And our first poet is Janice Booth. And Janice is a teacher and a journalist. She has her own column in a monthly magazine, and she often writes about gardening, farming, nature, the environment. And she, as a teacher, has a beloved group of students that have called her their mentor and follow her throughout their life. Here's Jan Booth.
Thank you, Grace. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you to Henry for inviting us and giving us this platform. My first poem that I'm going to read is a Villanelle, which is a French form of 19 lines divided into 5 tercettes followed by a quatrain. My Villanelle is titled Dark Places. Have you a drawer that holds who knows what? A seldom opened, shadowed, dusty place to toss life's odds and ends and keys to rooms now shut? I've found forgotten fragments, talismans to bring me luck. Faded memories rise unbidden, and time could not erase what's left inside my drawer that holds who knows what. A door waits for the key, a person for my call, but that abandoned key is bent. The photo's fold obscures the face. Toss those keys to memory's rooms now shut. Yet still I prod and search and dig and rut, seeking familiar things in this dark space. What waits for me inside this drawer that holds who knows what? Sharp things lurk there that still can tear and cut. The crumpled letter, some torn Spanish lace. I hold the key to dark rooms long since shut. Why clear the shards, untie the knots, forgive myself and others in each case? I have a drawer that holds who knows what, and I alone keep keys to rooms now shut. My next poem is an elegy, which is traditionally a poem in honor of someone who has died, someone we've lost. But I've chosen to take my elegy in a different direction. Where do we go from here? Sighs the wave as it breaks on the shore. Where do we go from here? Cry the acorns as they strike forest floors. Where do we go from here? Call the doves as they mourn their mates, and the men as they meet their fate. Waves break and are broken. Acorns drop and decay. Doves sing sorrow's token. Men tuck their fear away. Go back to the sea. Become the tree. Teach the young. Other lives have begun.
Natalie Canavore is our next poet. She's a journalist and a magazine editor. Natalie's profession is business communications, and she's been editor-in-chief of national magazines, as well as a director of corporate communications. Natalie has taught at NYU graduate students. She also has been an award-winning feature writer for the New York Times and other national publications. As a communication consultant, Natalie has written 10 books on business writing, including Business Writing for Dummies. Here's Natalie now as poet.
Thank you, Grace. Starting over. My first poem is a sonnet. And a sonnet's a traditional form which has been popular, especially in the Western world, and particularly among the Elizabethans, such as Shakespeare, since the 13th century, however. It calls for 14 lines with a fairly complicated rhyme pattern and ending in a couplet. So here is Beach Sonnet. What beguiles the eye more than a seashell? Tossed up at our feet by a callous sea, each with its own cryptic story to tell through pattern, line, and symmetry. We snatch the most flawless from beds of sand to ponder beauty, the meaning of art, hold the perfect small miracles in hand, and feel a joyful upswing of heart. But we decline to consider the sculptor unless we find the alien creature inside. Then we recoil from its slithery horror, our blackest nightmare personified. Is this the inexorable end all along? Throw out the singer, treasure the song. My second poem is Villanelle. In this case, this is a French poetic form, which originally was a song, It has 19 lines with 2 rhymes, and the first and third lines repeat in a specific and very confusing fashion if you're writing it. Okay, it's called Conversation with a Small Child. You asked me what it feels like to be old. Might as well ask a bird on the wing. Just know that when summer is gone, winter is cold. The same ancient story must ever be told, but time leaves us few songs to sing. You ask me what it's like to be old? It's more than bones brittling, the faltering hold, all the withdrawals long life will bring. Just know that when summer is gone, winter is cold. You alight at the edge, but freeze at the threshold and cling to the landscape you're leaving. You ask me what it feels like to be old? It's the story whose ending remains untold, no matter how creative our asking. Just know that when summer is gone, winter is cold. Shall I say that someday you'll see your own lifeline unfold and grasp for toeholds of meaning? You ask me what it feels like to be old? Just know that when summer is gone, winter is cold.
Marvelous. Sandy Cohen is our next poet. She is an attorney, and she was an attorney with the Maryland Attorney General's office. She also taught at the University of Maryland School of Law. She has also managed restoration of the shoreline of the Chesapeake Bay. And in addition, she is a world-class portrait painter who is now exhibiting at BWI Airport. She doesn't like small venues, I think. Here's Sandy Cohen.
Thank you very much, Grace. My first poem is called Haven. It's a sonnet about a spot of wilderness that I treasure on the Chesapeake Bay. Haven. This is their place, the free, the wild ones. Here I stay by their grace to be renewed when I come. Thriving families, furred or feathered, breeding young that feed and frolic in my view. In season, winged flocks arrive to rest from migration, white elegance afloat on blue. You wonder that I say I miss them when they're called by instinct to depart. True, I've never touched or held them, yet free creatures swell my heart. These foxes, eagles, flocks of swans, this place of pause from the race we're on. Next, I'll read More Than Once. Excuse me. This was written during the first year of the pandemic in response to a prompt to create a poem in words of just one syllable. More than once. What to do? He writes me after years and years, 6 times 10 to be clear. He feels the swell of when we were sweethearts at the start in high school, and then grew a few years. He hoped we would wed, but now he says that when I chose to go, he knew this was right for me to do, for then he could not be the man that I would need. I think he wants me to know how he has grown. He asks more than once to talk, not by phone, but by Zoom from his home on the far side of the globe. Not right away do I write him to say yes. So then on New Year's Day, we see and we speak for 5 quick hours. The call did not seem long at all. At once we were both at ease, with much to say, as you may guess. Each face at 80 years has so much changed, some way the same. More than once he looked at me to say, "You were my first love," as I looked away. He wants to be in touch. It means so much if I don't write him back right quick. He frets with cheer, but shows it hurts. How odd, for such long years we shared no word. To be friends on a sound old base of trust would be okay, would be fine, in fact, to learn of his climb and his work, much praised in the world. But it's come clear he wants to be close, and though this warms me, I do not yield to how he feels. He has not looked yet with his old eyes at mine, as we have come to be here in this time. In him, young thoughts are stirred. He wants to merge our long gone past into the life he lives at last. I do not wish to hurt him. That's the crux which makes me loath too quick to risk his trust. What if I'd learn I'd leave him more than once?
Sandy Cohen, imagine the lyricism she got from those one-syllable words. It's magic. Carol Falk has an academic education in Asian arts, and she's a longtime associate with the Asian Museums of the Smithsonian Institution. She was known as a potter working with clay, and then moved into paper and pen and paint. And she also writes haiku, as well as other poetry. Right now, she has a one-woman show hanging in Annapolis at Magnificent Mixed Media. Here's Carol Falk.
Thank you, Grace. I think your parents chose your name appropriately. You are so full of grace. My first poem is called Complications. It's a nostalgic memory poem in response to a prompt from Grace at the beginning of the pandemic to go back into our lives, pick a year and an incident, and illuminate it. Complications. Hanging in a memory for 60 years, the cashmere softness, the rich color, the scent of the fox shawl collar, a very special gift. Back then, I donned its elegance for my father's approval, a princess who loved so unconditionally. Dapper, cultured, and with the bearing of a prince, he radiated charm and charisma. But later, his errors tainted the memory of the coat. He had strayed, fooling himself while ruining my mother's life. I said nothing, though I knew it was wrong. My mother, forever constant and caring, had been wronged. I felt her pain and knew where my loyalty should lie. Yet I couldn't help but adore my daddy forever, the handsome star who gave me the gorgeous coat and so much more. My second offering is called Touch a Dead Artist, 4 stanzas of tercets. I'm falling into the canvas, a Rothko in orange, red, and white at the museum, a barrier stop sign. Built of many washes, each hidden layer a contrasting hue, trapping me in the revealing edges. The yellows sing, the darks gather and retreat. I feel the beat pulsing. If I could touch the ridges, I'd feel his hand and sad and tortured heart. Thank you.
Meg Robinson is here. She's a musician, songwriter, and composes music for the harp. She's been performed worldwide, and she has more than 30 published compositions. She was commissioned, among other things, for the opening of the Strathmore Hall in Bethesda, the Annapolis Ballet, and Carnegie Hall. She is now working also as a workshop leader for a new mental health app, Inner World. Here's Meg Robinson.
Thank you, Grace. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. It's good to see so many people. My first poem is an extended metaphor called People Are Museums. People are museums. They are collections. They are special exhibits of emotions and ideas and beliefs. People are displays that can be seen at certain times when the sign says open, when you have a ticket to enter. They sometimes give tours when they want to let you through the door. But when they're closed for visitors, no key will let you in. No passwords or special handshakes will let you enter. And in each room, their works can be seen. Some of it messy, some neatly framed. The walls are movable. The displays can change. They will sometimes give tours by special request. And when the time comes, the museum will close forever, its contents frozen in time. Thank you. And now for my second poem. As a songwriter, I was cautioned never to use cliches. But in the case of the following poem, I was happily instructed to use only cliches. So I present to you the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room puts you between a rock and a hard place. You can run, but you cannot hide. Although you're banging your head against a wall, it's the same old story, time and time again. It's hard to live and let live, to let bygones be bygones, to weather the storm, to go with the flow. You want to let sleeping dogs lie. But you can take the bull by the horns. You can call it as you see it. You can leave no stone unturned. You can seize the day. You can open the floodgates and speak your mind. You can set the record straight. There's no time like the present. Never say never. Shoot for the moon. Bring to a dead end the elephant in the room.
So marvelous, Meg Robinson. So we're going to start another round of poetry, but you can see what fun we've had for the last few years. We have had a ball, we have had a blast, and we're not finished yet. We are going further and farther. We meet next week. We never miss a beat. And there's just lots of challenges for them. They groan a lot, but they all show up and do every single form. So we're going to go back to Jan Booth. She's our educator, our journalist, our nature writer, and she's going to give us another set.
Thank you, Grace. And it is great fun. The trust that Grace has established amongst us, as you can see from the poems, has meant everything. This poem is an homage to a contemporary poet, Joyce Sutphin, and a poem I read of hers entitled Some Glad Morning. My poem is entitled Some Peaceful Evening. One day, something very old happened again. The green leaves turned their youthful glow to deeper russet and copper, falling like sighing maidens from summer's now gnarled and weathered branches, falling to earth grown tired and gray with frost. The wind commenced to sweep the meadows clean and dust the forest floor. Rain washed and settled autumn's careless rubble. Chill air quieted the chirping birds and let a peaceful silence calm the sleepy woods. Light fell, steeply angled, through naked limbs, and Mother Earth sighed. It was as good as ever. Cherries dropped blood red, cornstalks hid the deer. Windfall apples were reborn as steaming cider. Hay bales, like simple caskets, edged the field, sentries for quiet winter's passing. I sighed and settled tired bones. It was a peaceful evening. My last poem is, as Carol pointed out, a memory poem from a particular point in my life. I took at age 23, and my poem is titled 23. Gray shingles, white curtains billowing through bright windows, scent of sea lavender along the dunes, Cahoon Hollow, White Crest, Herring Cove, waves eliding, cockle shells and Scotch bonnets riding the crests. Fishing boats at dawn, derrick jaws dripping seagrass. All this spread before us. We sat above the marsh, my friend and I, poised on a bluff. Like sea glass, we were smoothed by Cape Cod's sway and talked of nothing, everything. Thank you.
Jan is our nature writer, among other things. And remember Natalie, she's an expert in business communications before she became a poet. Now she is both. Here's Natalie.
This is also a memory poem, and I think we all found that writing poetry pushes us to recall the past in a lot more detail than we would have thought, and also to see more meaning in what happened and sometimes in what did not happen. This poem is called Distance. Why did I never ask my grandmother what it was like to leave somewhere in the Ukraine at 20, I think, and travel cheaply in a huge ship to Ellis Island, I think? Was she frightened? Was being an immigrant from a village where her people were persecuted to death, like the movie versions I've seen? Who did she leave behind? How did that family live? Did she ever speak to them again? Her young husband, I was told, suffered an accident on that ship and lost his leg. The right one, I think. Is that why I only remember my grandfather sitting at the window, bad leg propped on a chair, staring grimly at the bleak rubbled sidewalk outside? Is that why he seemed so distant, so bitter? Or was there another reason? I never asked. And how did my grandmother, barely speaking English, bring up 3 children and support a mostly disabled husband? She ran a small restaurant, or she was the cook, I think. I was told she was very beautiful when young, and a distant relative once said that Grandma Becky loved the theater and took her there when she visited. But I never asked her about that, nor why she so lovingly tended to the dolls I'd long outgrown, washing and ironing their fancy white dresses, braiding their rough blonde hair, smiling at them shyly, proudly. Why didn't she like my father? And what did she think when all her grandchildren came back from college and had nothing to say to her that we thought she would understand? I can never ask her now, and no one is left anywhere who knows the answers. So I just have questions more all the time, and a ton of facts and anecdotes and memories of my own life to share, should my grandchildren ever ask. And my final poem is, it looks like the word gazelle, but apparently it's supposed to be pronounced ghazal. And it's an Arabic form made up of couplets, which are independent of each other, and was originally a song format. So it has a refrain and a kind of tricky rhyme scheme, which I'm pretty sure I took some liberties with. It's called Unknowing. What does the brave yellow crocus feel as the heavy March snow crumples up its vibrant petals? I don't want to know. What does the trapped old lion feel when we stare through the bars? His restless painting haunts me. It's better not to know. What does the baby bird feel rescued to my kitchen counter, motherless and limp, panting life away so slowly? I try not to know. What does my darling cat feel, his eyes fixed on mine, while the vet jettisons him from life? I never want to know. What does my child feel watching her first true love decamp? I go to her and listen, but why would I want to know? What does my brother feel in passing? Only a nurse's hand to hold. I wish with all my soul I'd been there, but I'm grateful not to know.
That was Natalie Canavore. And now Sandy Cohen.
Thank you, Grace. I'm going to read another sonnet called Sounding. How is it that words can be revelatory? A person's scrawl or spoken sound, a term or phrase or story, conveys an understanding. The magic is profound. This question is at least twofold: the talent in humanity through language to unfold bonds of knowing, our common capacity. How is thought transmitted by word, whether written and read or spoken and heard, that we're moved to awareness by what someone said? Our connection is strongest, enlightenment sown, when words we receive unveil what we've known. And lastly, excuse me, I'll read a cento, C-E-N-T-O, entitled She Thought There Was Love. A cento is a form that creates a unique new poem composed entirely of lines borrowed from other poets. The lines in my poem were written by James Merrill, Shelley, Elizabeth Bishop, Frost, Stephen Vincent Benet, Louise Brogan, T.S. Eliot, Grace Cavalieri, Edna St. Vincent Millay, and Carl Sandburg. She thought there was love. The sun rose near at hand like a cloud of fire, burning quietly where the dew cannot climb. He could not climb that slippery slope in a dell of dew, its aerial hue. When it broke and he got away, the letter that told it burned my hand, burned like a brand, for it broke my heart to see it. And in short, I was afraid, no longer needed. Break since you must, saying nothing of the self is here. All your lovely words are spoken, as sweet as I could bear. Need we say it was not love? Look out how you use proud words. Oh, come on, you. Do you want to live forever? Earth's the right place for love.
Oh, imagine taking those disparate lines, shards, and making something newly whole. That was Sandy. Carol
Thank you,
Falk
Grace.
is our expert in Asian art, and she's another world-renowned artist, mixed media. Here's Carol.
Thank you, Grace. True or not? Okay. True or not? Can a river be lonely? Can waves yearn to hold last summer's ducks? Can the rhythm be lost when no one is looking? Barnacles amass on a piling, growing, ending without anyone noting. Fish spawn in large circles, nothing to disturb the pattern. Rocks lay unmoved, gathering algae, while grasses grow unchecked at water's edge and sway to an unheard song. I hear the river sigh. My second poem is a guzzle, and Natalie stole my thunder because I was going to say it's not a drink, but in Arabic form. Anyway, it's called Hubris. I paint many layers, many blue. I feel anything but blue. Textures add depth in the midst of all the blue. Brush strokes cross, some parallel. The brush is permanently stained blue. Now I add a focal point in red, just to move the eye away from the blue. A little green dollop, some black lines, and it seems to be not so blue. Life is grand, my hand so practiced, but then a careless slash rips through the blue. My once perfect painting reminds me that hubris is truly blue.
Carol Falk. Was that your second one, Carol? Yes. Okay, we're going to move to Meg. Meg is our musician, songwriter, harpist, and she is going to close us out with a poem. What is it, Meg?
There are two, actually. The first one is a memoir poem entitled Powder Blue Corduroy. I wear powder blue corduroy and a white polka dot blouse, hairband on my head. I am 12 and nervous, my first dance. I see my classmates. They look confident, different, dressed to perfection here at the dance. I am standing against a wall. One dance ends, another begins. I move to the opposite corner. I stand there waiting for something, waiting for someone, but nothing changes. I go to the bathroom. I look in the mirror. It is still me, dressed up. My face is beet red. I move around the room looking busy. I say hello to a few friends, but it doesn't change things. The music begins, the music ends. I'm still against the wall, waiting, still against the wall. I am picked up and taken home. I don't tell the true story. Yes, it was fun. I go up to my room, I run into the bathroom, I close the door, and there, the weight of anger, the weight of shame washes over me. I look in the mirror and stare. I stop crying. I'm still the same person. Nothing has changed. I talk out loud to myself. This is not my fault. I am a good person. This means nothing. I will not let them hurt me. Something in me hardens. I am tough. I am going to get through this. Powder blue corduroy and a white polka dot blouse. For my final poem, I'm going to read an ode. This form is an homage to an object or a thing. And now, ode to the bra. You're the queen bee of our wardrobe. You're our favorite, best in show. You have a job that's twice as hard as panties down below. Your 2 cups fill up gently, made of cotton, sometimes lace. You're our undergarment heroes, holding memories in place. You're the one who gives us cleavage. You're the one that we can hook. You're the one who makes us shapely when someone takes a look. Some of you are backless, and some are made for sport. Some can make us bigger, but you always give support. When we need to be reminded what a starring role you play, we can try to go without you, but then we start to sway. Your work is never ending. Weightlifters, one and all. You hold both gals up nicely and you never let them fall. In the 50s, you were pointing. Then the hippies burned you up, but you never stopped your mission as you held on cup by cup. Once implants were an option, you needed to expand. Double, triple, and quadruple bigger chests were in demand. You are clever in construction. Helping babies is a breeze. There are flaps designed for feeding, helping mothers nurse with ease. Sometimes you can be sexy. Sometimes you can reveal all the goodies underneath you that someone might want to feel. We salute you like a soldier, nipples stand erect and say, thank you for your service each and every single day.
Meg Robinson. I wonder if Petrarch or Ovid would recognize that ode. That is, what can I say after we hear that? What can I say? Well, here you have heard 5 of our 6 women who have met every other week for 3 years and are just alive, discovering themselves, opening their hearts, seeing what falls out, and putting it into craft. Craft is the way we hold our art. And in the chat room, I see that Karen asks, what form in poetry did you choose for each poem? Well, that is pretty pat answer. Do you want to answer it, Carol? Yeah. Can you unmute? What forms, what, she believes that you chose your own forms.
Mhm.
Well, why do we have forms?
Actually, Grace, I wanted to know, how do you choose a form if you aren't told to use one? That's
Oh,
what I mean.
well, that is a different question because we could throw that out to the group. And Jan, do you want to pick that one up? How would you choose a form to match the content if you weren't given the prompt?
Fortunately for me, Grace has put us through our paces, and I think my fellow poets in training will agree. So she's given us a lot of different techniques. And for me, the most valuable thing she said was, if you're afraid to write something, or if you feel stymied, frustrated, take a form, any form, and see if that gives you the kind of support, following on Meg's poem, the kind of support that will help you build a poem. And I found that to be true in many, even though some of these forms are pretty complicated or seem that way to us as beginners. Once I put myself into that form and what I want to say, it usually works.
That's exactly right. And so well said, because it's the way we hold our tumult. For instance, I mean, once you put it in form, it has something that you can depend, someone's in control. Someone's in control. Thank you so much, Jan. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I have questions for these people. I hope I won't take them by surprise. Okay, back to you, Carol. What did you find the most intimidating or daunting about all the things we did in the last 3 years?
You did catch me by surprise.
So there's so many you can't imagine.
Right.
What did you find the most difficult?
The more complicated forms were difficult for me. I'm better off with free verse or haiku, which is short and to the point. I relate to that.
But
I'm
that you
scared.
mastered it.
Well, I try to be spare in my paintings, and I guess I'm spare with my words as well.
Yes, you fetched every time, but then you were brilliant every time, Carol. So let's see. I'm going to ask Sandy what you want from poetry. What do you want? You have to unmute. Sandy. Okay. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, Grace?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
The
okay.
question was, what do you want? You have mastered a career that is luminary, and you're still showing off in beautiful galleries all over. What do you want from poetry?
Well, you know that I just went along for the ride in the beginning. And and I wasn't well read in poetry, let alone well versed in writing it. And you were irresistible, so I was drawn right in. It's a very personal form of expression, and I think this group, speaking for myself, we were basically strangers to each other who happened to have been invited to Meg's luncheon where you were. And so through your offer of an ad hoc impromptu workshop that we jumped into fortuitously just before COVID struck, we all surprised ourselves, I think. We surprised each other in revealing ourselves to each other through the poems we wrote in response to your prompts. So I don't know how I would answer your question at another time, but at the particularly fortuitous time that we began writing poetry and reading it to each other, it was a tremendous boon, and it helped, I think, all of us feel connected with ourselves, connected with each other, and very much alive during an isolated period of pandemic.
It sure saved my life. Jan, you've used language as an English teacher for 30 years or more. And now how did this kind of language mesh with what you knew language could do?
Well, for me, one of the most interesting things was having taught poetry to students and learning from them how they perceived what was on the page and how they responded to it. To be in a position then myself to create something that I could watch the response of other people to what I was creating. As a journalist, I write feature articles, I write information, and that's always gratifying when someone says, oh, I read your article, or that was a good idea for the garden. But poetry is revealing parts of oneself, or for me it is anyway, that I don't usually share. So I came to trust myself and others more by being able to create a poem that carried so much for me and to see how others responded to it.
Thank you, Jan. Natalie, business expert, what did you learn about yourself? Natalie Canavore, what did you learn about yourself that you haven't learned as a business communicator?
Probably in some ways a lot more than I wanted to know, because I find that writing poetry forces you to review the past with a new perspective, and see more deeply into it, make connections. I can understand our old image of people our age, or what we considered old people, sitting on the porch and rocking and just thinking about their lives. We don't do that anymore, but I'm glad that we write poetry instead, because it connects us with ourselves and with other people very much, not just the ones we're writing with, our colleagues in this great endeavor for us. But it's amazing how much we realize what we feel is felt by so many other people, maybe in different forms and for different reasons, but it's a huge sense of connections and a general appreciation of life. I don't think I answered your question.
I think you did
Okay.
beautifully. Thanks. And Meg, our musician, songwriter, you've been writing lyrics, award-winning lyrics for years. What is the difference? What happened? What happened to you? What changed?
Well, I haven't given up songwriting, but it's interesting how, even though I was a songwriter and have been writing songs since I was 13, writing poetry is a very different discipline. The techniques, the structure of it, maybe I can rhyme a little more easily because of my songwriting background, but I think it's actually very different. And in some ways you can dig down deeper emotionally in poetry because you have the breadth of form to help you to be able to do that. And if I may, I wanted to add one more thing, and that is that when I was I took up harp as an adult, kind of late in life, and I had a mentor, my harp teacher, who, as soon as I started playing the harp, I started writing compositions for the harp, and she's the one who encouraged me to do something with my compositions. And I believe if it hadn't been for that relationship that I had with her, I would never have written as much for the harp. And I feel the same way about poetry, because we have this fabulous mentor in the form of Grace, who we never would have written the poetry, the extent of it, and wouldn't have been encouraged and inspired. This is not a paid announcement from Grace. This is total, anyone who knows her knows what I'm talking about. She's truly a gift. And I give so much of the credit of our work and our progress and our commitment really to the leadership and the mentorship of Grace.
How do I love thee? Did I just die? Is this my funeral? No, I didn't. Thank you, Meg. I really love these women so much. I have found my sisters in poetry. And so we will go on getting deeper and deeper. And I hope you'll have us back and see what comes up next year.
Grace, and all of your poets, thank you so much. This has been, we've over the last few years, we've seen a lot of poets, but rarely, if ever, have I seen the power of poetry work in people's lives like I have tonight. This is the power. This is the power of this form. In closing, I hope you enjoyed tonight's readers, and I hope that you will extend your enjoyment by purchasing their book, The Song in the Room, and letting others know about the series. And I'll put the links back in. If I've been putting them in all night, and I will put them in one more time to where you can get The Song in the Room. So please come out on Monday, June 6, 2022, when Cafe Muse Online will present poet Kamiko Han and Sharon Suzuki Martinez. And don't miss the final program in the Miller Cabin series on June 9, 2022. It's going to feature a tribute to Jacqueline Potter. Finally, we'll be back here again with PvP on June 9th, 2022, on June 29th, 2022 for our last program in the series, featuring Sue Ellen Thompson, reading from her book, Sea Nettles, along with Fran Abrams and Aaron Casato Kimura. Again, Grace and all of the poets from Song in the Room, I thank you. And I thank everyone who came out tonight. And as I say at the end of all these, good night and stay safe.